Hello and welcome to a new episode of SGC, Southern Gothic Creations. We hope that you enjoy today's show. It's going to be special. And if you like what you saw, go ahead and hit like and subscribe and stand by for another excellent programming. Hello and welcome to another episode of Southern Gothic Creations. This is the entertainment channel. We're here to talk about some very riveting, great stuff about publishing and being a writer. And I know there's a lot of us that are writers and we want to be published and we want to do a good job and we want to be serious about it, but we're also going to know that some of it's just a little crazy, but it's stuff we got to deal with. Our guest today, and I'm going to let Dan introduce himself more later, is Dan Klefstad. Did I pronounce that right?
No. Yes, you did.
Oh, there we go. And then my host, Deneen Azzolino. She's going to say she's the assistant editor, which makes it look like actually she helps me, but I really just forward the email to her. That might be more than an assistant, right, Dan? Maybe a little more to that. So, Deneen, tell them a little bit of yourself, and then we'll talk to Dan.
As Joe said, I'm editor of Southern Gothic Creations. So whenever you send any of your stories or articles to Joe, I'm the one that gets them next, and I read through them, and usually you're pretty good.
Yeah, they're usually good. Every now and then you got to turn them into English.
Yeah, there's been brain surgery at times, but it's good. It's all good.
But I would say a majority of them are good. Dan is one of our better writers. That's why he is on the show. And
well, thank you.
He really is. His sarcasm is just absolutely beautiful, and I know Deneen loves that.
Oh, I love it.
But no, we love it and stuff. And if you're not familiar with Southern Gothic, there'll be a link down here. You let you know, and it'll link to Dan's writing, to Deneen's writing, a link to my writing, maybe several links to my writing. They might just be mysterious. Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself and how we kind of got to this point.
Well, I retired from public radio about a year ago, moved down from DeKalb, Illinois to Louisville, Kentucky. My wife and I are now in this new house that we love a lot. And since I arrived last May, I have been busy introducing myself to other writers, to magazine editors such as yourself, to booksellers and all that. And I've been, I finally got an invitation to present at the Imaginarium Convention this July. It's a gathering of writers, poets, filmmakers, and other creatives. And I'll be speaking about DIY book promo, which just happens to also be the title of my latest book.
Yes. Publishing, and for those that don't know, if you're just watching this for entertainment's sake, we all want to be published. That's kind of the title of this, about wanting to be published and everything. But I think what Dan can really put into perspective is once the book is done, the work has started. And that's the key here, because you can write a great book. You can basically get a great cover. You can do everything. And unless you have some way of marketing this is going to be a tough road to hoe. And what Dan, I think, did in his latest book and on some articles and some things that he's done for us is point out that there's things you got to do. You're not hopeless or helpless. You can do it. Dan, just give somebody, you know they're going to publish the book. Now they've got it in their hands. Where do they go from here?
Well, I would hope that even before, once you have a date for the release of your book, which might be a couple of months out, that's a good ramp. A good enough ramp for you to then begin pitching the bookstores. Right to every bookstore in the country if you can. That's what I did. And let them know that you've got this book coming out, that why it's important, and give them they'll need the ISBN number. You will also need a really good review. So actually make that the first thing you do. Pitch your book to reviewers with an e-arc or some other review copy. And then once you get a review that is really good, hopefully from a blogger, maybe not one of your friends, someone who's maybe a little more serious about the genre that you're writing in, and then that review will be your calling card wherever you take it. So again, I talked about booksellers. You want to pitch media, start with your local radio or TV or newspaper, that thing. Maybe there's a podcast in your region that you could pitch as well. But make sure that you have all those things lined up by the time your book is released, so that you can make as big a splash as possible. I can talk about this a little bit later if you want, but it doesn't end there.
Yes.
Right.
Your release date, your launch party, there's still a long push. As long as your book is in print, it will be new to someone.
Yes.
So take time if you need it to extend your campaign to 2 or 3 years if necessary.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let me emphasize that, because we're going to talk about Southern Gothic for a minute. Your original, talking about anybody, but you, me, Dan, Deneen, we've all written for the site. Your original day or two or even week, you may not get that many reads.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, a month or two later, it will all pick up.
Mhm.
And it's not like maybe the old days, if that's what you want to call them, where you get one shot at this. You know, that first week's going to be your week. It's not like that in a digital world, or in a world where you can actually do commercials, if that's what you want to call them, or promos. And you can update them at your will, and you don't have to necessarily pay anybody to do it. You can do them yourself.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm a big advocate. In fact, my whole presentation and book, DIY book promo, is about the author putting in the hours themselves.
Yeah.
I like to think of it as a part-time job, 3 or 4 hours every day. If you have a full-time job, maybe you have to spend a little bit less each day on a promotion. Let's say you have a young child or an ill parent, or maybe you're coping with a chronic condition. If you can just do 30 minutes a day devoted to creating awareness about your book, 30 minutes a day, you know, the ripple effect will spread a little more slowly as people tell their friends about your book. But it's not a race. You're the only, you're the one that you're racing against, really. This is not a contest. So just get out there and enjoy the process of talking to people about your book.
You know, one of the things, and we've talked about this a couple of times, Dan, about you just have to make some effort. And I don't want to be overly preachy, you know, but sometimes I'll go, you know, I'm busy. You know, I'm busy doing nothing. That's what I'm busy. Right? So maybe in some of that time, you know, you can figure out to give it, because you should, this sounds so corny, you're worth investing your own time.
Oh, guys, and the book that you poured, you know, countless hours of research into, years composing in some cases. You know, I remember spending 4 years writing a novel. I mean, I worked. It was important for me that as many people as possible would read my book, just because I believed in it. I book. I had good reviews, but also I had spent so much time, devoted so much of life into that book. So yeah, you owe it to that book. And so I'd say do the work, and you can do it yourself.
Yeah, and I'm going to share something with you. We're going to get into something here, and I'm big into it. Is that, you know, I've said this in other, you know, ways, and we've talked about it before, and Deneen and I've talked about it a lot. You got to have some thick skin too. Don't think, okay, I wrote a book and everybody thinks I'm, you know, now the greatest writer of all time.
Right. Yeah.
Probably not going to happen. Okay.
Right.
But you do have to kind of be honest with yourself about who did you write the book for, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and your genre. And I think this goes back to why it's good to have bloggers to do a review than your mom. Okay. Because your mom's going to give you a great report.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to know it's your mom, but you know, but getting a blogger, because it's really this. You did a novel about vampires.
I did.
Correct. Okay. Get the title for that.
Fiona's Guardians.
Okay. If somebody told Dan, okay, you know, I love all books, but except ones for vampires. Right. They're really not the person to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you want to help yourself, but you don't want to waste their time as well,
That's
the
right.
bloggers' time, by pitching
That's
them and then having them say, no, thank you.
Right.
You know, do yourself, both you and the blogger, a favor by choosing a blogger, reading their website actually carefully enough to know what genres they review.
Yeah, and see, and I think that's really strong because I think that people will go, they want everybody to love everything, which I do too. I mean, I think that's a kind of human nature. But when you deal with certain genre, somebody could actually think you're a good writer. They just don't like that genre. They don't like that style.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You know,
it is important to remember your book isn't pizza, right? I
Right.
mean, it's not going to be universally loved.
no.
Right.
So once you kind of accept that, then you
Right.
kind of you are a better position to look for people who might enjoy your book, whether it's in a Facebook group for, you mentioned vampires, fans of Dracula or Gothic
Yeah.
lifestyle and literature, that kind of thing. Or if you wrote a beach read or something like that, a
Yeah.
romance or a sci-fi, you will find groups and you will find bloggers that you can engage with.
Yeah. See, and I think that's it. I think that if you I don't think that anybody that knows anything about my writing will ever say, I think Joe St. John's going to write a beach read. But I don't. But my point being is that is actually, we have talked about this before. As a matter of fact, we will refer to this particular episode as Groundhog Day for the remainder of the
We should probably provide some context. Should we
Yeah,
explain that? Or...
But it's one of the things we talked about on a couple of occasions is, where do you go where you have to kind of respect who you're writing this for.
Okay,
and
so
it's not a one, this is for the world.
Right, you're not writing it in complete isolation. You are at some point going to put it in front of a reader, and so you need to think of and have some respect for your reader. That doesn't mean don't experiment with prose. Try something different, because there's always going to be somebody who's interested in avant-garde writing. I get that, but keep in mind who you're writing for, the audience that you're trying to attract, and then write exactly to them.
Yeah, and keep in mind that you got a style, and we don't want you to compromise your style, but understand that it's going to fall into a genre even if you think it's not. It is. One of the things Deneen gets, because she is our editor, she's asked the question a couple of times, like, who are you writing this for?
Yeah.
And that might sound like a tough question, but it's an honest question.
It is. You have to. I've sent Joe plenty of cut and paste paragraphs from people's work, and I go, does this person really want to go there with this? Because this is going into a whole different, genre, anything. I mean, it doesn't go with the story.
Yeah. And go ahead, Dan.
Well, I was going to say, I'm reminded of, is it Stephen King who said, kill your darlings. If it belongs in a completely other story, take it out of the current one and then put it in your work file for maybe a future story.
Right. Yep. Y'all talk amongst yourself, because I wanna look at something. Go ahead.
Okay, sure.
Go ahead and talk amongst yourself.
Hey, Dan, how you doing?
I'm great. It's really great to see you.
I'm looking up something.
It seems like yesterday.
Yes,
as a matter of fact,
Groundhog Day.
That's
all you need to know.
So I guess we should probably say, for those who don't know what we're talking about, this is take 2, because it involves computers. We get it. Some things.
It happens.
Gremlins happen.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So what's going on, Joseph?
We're not even going to edit that out. I'm just going to leave that for Rob.
No, we have to. I mean,
we will edit nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing about writing. I had to look up his name.
Okay.
Because I was having a moment.
Okay.
If you think you're going to write like William Burroughs and everybody's going to understand you.
Right.
Okay.
No.
Naked Lunch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was very successful writing like that. You, on the other hand, will not be.
I would never have the courage to write like that. Yeah, absolutely. I admire him.
Oh,
greatly.
I admire him tremendously.
Yeah.
I read the book and it took me 3.5 days to relearn English.
That's a really good way that's a great review. In fact, that's a fantastic review. You should put that on Amazon or something. Good.
That's right. I said, listen, it will give you some insight because I may be the only person that knows what Steely Dan really means. Google it. It will not be in a link down. So, there is a point where I want you to be creative because I do get to be at the end, the final editor.
Right.
Don't confuse that with the person that proofs the book, but the final editor. Well, and Deneen will send me something and you're like, it isn't that the thing is horrible. It's just, it's a rabbit hole you didn't need to go down. And if you cut it out, and I think Deneen can even explain it better, you really know it's a rabbit hole if you can cut it out, take it out of the book, and it doesn't change the story.
Is that right, Deneen? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
If you can take that piece out that I'm questioning, I'll send a suggestion and say, do you really need this? Because if I take it out, your story still continues. It's not bad. It still flows the way you want it to flow. And it doesn't you don't need to reach that far, so it does. You have to know who your audience, who you're trying to reach, who you want to read your story and read your other stories afterwards.
Yeah, because that's what's going to happen. That's the important part. And I've seen it even when I look at our own stories on Southern Gothic, that people, and I've said this before, that they'll come into Southern Gothic because it is a digital site. Right. And I believe they're probably bored at work or something. And they'll come in and read something, and then they'll read a bunch of other things.
That's great.
And a lot of times they dip into the same the same author. And because of that, you have to understand when you're writing, you're actually creating a body of work. Yeah. And if they like your story at the beginning, they're going to go back and revisit other things.
Right.
And that's really what you're shooting for.
And it's a great way for an author to develop an audience and spread and a brand even. But for the reader, it's great for them too because they trust the author now. They know that they devote their time to that author, pick something up by that author, then they're going to enjoy the story. And
we try at Southern Gothic that, like we're doing here, that we try to promote your book because I want them to go and buy your merchandise, and that's really what we're shooting for. And we want you to be true to yourself. I mean, trust me, you want to be true to yourself. But if being true to yourself messes your story up, you have not accomplished the things that you want.
Right. And maybe the writer in that case hasn't quite figured out who they want to be as a writer, what they want to say. And so maybe this might be a case where they should submit something to you in a year or 6 months, Right.
We're never going to brutalize you. I think I can say this. So if, you ever want to, anybody that's listening wants to do on Southern Gothic, we don't brutalize anybody. As a matter of fact, a couple of times we've came back and just tried to massage it where you could fix your story.
Yeah, that's great.
What's really good is when you get people like Dan and you don't have to do anything. That's
oh, it's a
I'm serious.
Story.
That's the best.
I'll read through this real quick and I'll be fine.
Well, but there's we had a story, and I don't want to point which one it was. I actually thought the story was good, but we had to go in there with the author a couple of times and get him to tighten up some places. And it was like, it's not that the writing was, it wasn't that the story was bad.
No, the story was
the
fantastic.
writing was convoluted. And I didn't want anybody to get to that point and go, I don't think that made sense.
Right.
Yeah. So we're really talking about the craft at this point. the words, one word after another word, and making sense of that.
That's right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because
And I've had an author that taught me a few things because it was a genre I never got into. It was a little bit of spicy stuff. And I said to her, I said to her, this doesn't make sense. I said, shouldn't you be capitalizing the name? No, when you're talking in this tone, it was always lowercase. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I did learn something from her. And I said, I guess I got to brush up on my words in that, vocabulary about that.
So lowercase is her love language. Am I reading that
Yes,
correctly?
it was exactly. Oh, Dan, you got what I meant.
Yeah.
It's a growing process. And like I said, I think most editors are like me and Deneen. We'll listen to if you go, oh, that needs to be that way because this is what we're going to listen to you. But at the same time, if we, say, like, I don't mind controversy. I don't even mind bumping heads. So if I tell you went too far, you probably went a bridge too far.
I see. Yeah. Okay. And of course, you're thinking about your
listen to me. But
you're always thinking about your readership, aren't you? So you're trying to think.
And I have to
meet their expectations.
It's like when you have to go through people, it can be extremely interesting because you might forget that I do have to think about my average reader.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do. Dan wrote, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to let him tell you the story on it. And I'm going to let him tell the title about being rejected. And I thought it was the best story I had ever read.
Yeah. I actually, I get rejected all the time, I should say.
Yes.
I even got dumped by a publisher once. So for a writer at the beginning of their career, that's the ultimate rejection in many ways. So I had to, kind of crawl back up, and I found a new publisher, and who actually gave me some tips on how to find readers. And I found this. They released my vampire novel and also DIY book promo, my latest, Burton Mayer's books. They're in Scotland. But having been rejected by one publisher previously, after they took me on, was really hard. But I actually learned how to deal with rejection, especially with writing, from not an author, but an IT worker named Jason Comley, a Canadian fellow who was featured on episode 1 of NPR's Invisibilia podcast. I think it's from 2015. NPR has since canceled that podcast. And Jason Comley, his wife left him, and he felt so terrible about himself after she left for a wealthier, taller guy, whatever. And he became so afraid to go out into public to see other people because he was afraid, he realized, of being rejected again. And so he decided, he asked himself, what am I afraid of? So he decided to make a game out of rejection. He made it a goal. Today, I'm going to get rejected 10 times. And, and eventually that's just kind of helped build up his armor again, and helped him be a functional human being again, confident and in the world. So I would say check out that podcast if, again, Invisibilia episode 1, if you are dealing or have trouble dealing with rejection. I think it might help you.
Yeah. I think this is a thick-skinned profession.
Yes,
I think the arts are a thick-skinned profession.
Well, I've got 2 takes on that. Yes, and that's after the work is completed.
Yes.
When you're composing or when you're painting that masterpiece that you hope to, or a good piece of music, you really do have to crack open your chest and expose your insides.
Yes.
Hanging out, vulnerable to attack. I really feel that that's an important part of the process. You're just opening yourself up completely to the world, to any positive energy that can help you create. And then once you're done composing and you're ready to put to start pitching to editors, publishers, and agents, etc., that's when you have to put on the armor again.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
don't take it off until you're ready to compose again.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I would
Yeah.
agree with it. And I think that opening up yourself when you're writing, it helps manage that self-editor that you get in you so bad that really can mess your story up. But I
Yes.
think we'll one time do an episode on that, about the writing process and the self-editor.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
I
would
had
love
to
do
turn that off, but that's a whole different topic.
Oh, but I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to turn that off. And you have to be able to be open and honest with yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
one of the things that I've noticed, and I would really like to deep dive on this one, is I think that one of the things I'd like to see is artists that's both writers and media people who are doing videos, and all of us that are just involved in some sort of artistry, you know, painters and everything, that we stop being competitive and we really do realize we need to form some sort of bond.
Yes.
Where this isn't a football game. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Or it's not a piece of pie, a whole pie. And if you take a slice, that means there's less pie for me.
Right.
You know,
Right.
really, it is all about, you know, helping each other and, you know, bringing the next generation of artists or writers up as well. Because I think that's part of the mission of being a creative person.
Yes.
You have to,
Mhm.
at some point, teach and share what you've learned. But by doing so, you're also going to benefit from the other artists' experience as well. And that might inform your next piece of work. So I like to think of it as our interactions with each other as a conversation. And what
Yes.
can I learn from you? And yes, I might need help. Can you recommend that I get into this gallery or into this
Right.
publisher? But that's fine. But really, in the end, it is also just about, what can you teach me today?
Right. Right.
Mhm.
We have to stay connected, because I don't like the sport analogies with them where it's like we're all battling. No, we're really not. We're just to point it out, Deneen has a daughter who is a absolute incredible artist. Her drawings are amazing. And I always, you know, I'm a little jealous of artists like that, because even if you didn't like it, you would ooh and all over it. Right?
Yeah.
Writers-
Seeing the ability.
Writers, we got a hard road. First off, you don't look at it for 5 seconds. You actually have to invest time in it.
Yes. Yeah.
And as we have spoken before, if you watch most TV or you watch a movie, if it stinks, it's because it's bad writing.
Mhm.
100%. Yeah.
It's just horrible writing. And you're like, you can feel as a writer slighted because you don't get that immediate 20-second buzz of, oh, this is beautiful. You know, because they have to actually read it. But yet, if you go, and I'm not picking on any of your streaming services, but if there's something really bad on it, it's usually the writing. It's not the acting. It's
Oh, absolutely. You know, there's that phrase that they use in Hollywood screenwriting circles. You know, if it's not on the page, it ain't on the stage.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And any actor will tell you that.
Yeah. It's so, you know, there is that part sometimes where I can get a little jealous, you know. But then I remember the stuff that we're writing is really important. People do like to read. I mean, you know, it isn't like people have given up on reading. They still read.
Oh, yeah.
And if you look at it from the sense of bad art or bad media, you know, usually you can dump it right on the writing.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that that's instructive to everybody listening right now, to really take your craft seriously.
Yes.
I don't care if you write haiku, or if you write a memoir, or if you write short stories. Make sure that you are serious about your craft.
Right.
Get clear your calendar so that you can compose without anybody interrupting you. If they don't take you seriously, well, let me repeat that. If you don't take yourself seriously, everybody around you won't take you seriously either.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, I don't understand why that's a hard concept for some people. I mean, it's not just art, it's about life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hit the nail on the head is, if you do not take yourself serious, why should anybody else?
Absolutely. Yeah.
you know, and we're almost, I'm not sure what the American culture is sometimes. I'm going to be honest with you, because it seems like we want people to be proud of who they are. Okay. Yet, if you are proud of what you do, that's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Not who you are, but what you do. Now, all of a sudden, you got people now like, oh, I don't know if you should be like that. I said, I'm proud of what I did. It's part of who I am. Okay.
Yeah.
And it is weird because you don't want to be a braggart and you don't want to be all that. We're not saying that, but you should be proud of everything you do.
Yeah, and I think that who we are really is what we do.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Are you a good parent? Well, we can see that by the children you raised. Are you a good writer? We can see that by the short stories or novels that you've published.
Right. I think sometimes we forget that you are what you do. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I know that not everybody agrees with that, but there you go.
I think it would make sense to anybody with a sense of ambition and wanting to improve themselves. I think that it absolutely would resonate with anybody who agrees that.
I will tell you something, because rejection is weird. I've been rejected more times than I care to admit. And sometimes things that didn't work out turned out to be pretty good. That it actually wasn't really a good fit for you, right?
That's
but it didn't mean that I didn't try.
Right.
Okay. That's kind of was fate. That rejection actually kind of worked out for me. But I never went into anything that I've ever done in my life going, I don't care if I'm successful or not.
Yeah. If anybody has that attitude, no matter what they're not going to succeed.
That's right. That's right. You have to do some things. One thing that you mentioned prior that I was very impressed with, and I hadn't really given any thought to, you said it in about when you start pushing stories. And one of the things that you mentioned to me one time was, if there is a day, a week, a month, or whatever, there's a day or a period of time, a season, as I think you referred to it as, where your book would be very apropos. Yeah. How many months do you need to start promoting that before this event occurs?
I think if you're pitching it to a media editor or a podcast host or a radio host, they're going to want to know about it probably 6 weeks to 2 months ahead of time, because they get they're inundated with pitches all the time.
Right.
So let's say, and so earlier I mentioned that I wrote a vampire novel. Obviously, October is the time to pitch media, to pitch bookstores, to get out there in the community and tell people that. So I'm probably thinking by early to mid-August about what I'm going to pursue to get my book out there. But it's also, you can be strategic too about thinking about upcoming holidays. Just look at the calendar, one of those that includes all the holidays, and say, count back a couple months and look at you. So let's say you wrote a book that fits in with a national celebration, like Pride Month or Juneteenth or Veterans Day or Memorial Day, which will be coming up soon. Back time from that and think, okay, that's a hook that I can use that's going to attract a producer, a TV producer, radio, or a newspaper editor, get their attention. And that'll help you as you craft your pitch. It'll focus your pitch, actually.
Yeah, see, I think that's great. And I think, you have to flip the side over too and look at the opposite side. If your story is about a family that's dysfunctional on Thanksgiving, and you think it's the only one, you're
right.
Yeah. Okay. So you may want to, if you do a Thanksgiving story, maybe, I don't know, do one that's not about that. And then go and realize that they're going to get inundated with holiday stories by the time Halloween shows up.
Absolutely. So be in that mindset. Look at your calendar and think about understanding what your genre is and any hooks it might have to someone in the news business. And then just go ahead and write as a compelling a pitch as possible. And when you're writing that pitch to a news media outlet, always grab them with why it matters now that you interviewed me.
Yeah. we're going to have your link in there, you know, so they can order your book because they need to. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I've really battled the self-publishing, working with small publishing houses. I think they're the best way to go. We don't have, you know, the days of having 500, you know, publishing houses are over.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and that means a lot of work is going to end up on you. But I think your book does a great job at it, is if you're thinking about all of this beforehand, then you're not shocked. But let's say right now you watch this later, because these videos get watched months after we make them.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, you know, I was just thinking about doing that very clever, never been written before Thanksgiving story about my dysfunctional family. Okay. And now you listen to this and go, I might want to rethink that. That's fine. Because, you know, your writing has to be alive.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, if you prefer to just write stuff that nobody's going to read, and that's your goal and you're content with that, fine. You will not need a book like DIY book promo
Right.
at all. But however, if you have some ambitions about yourself as a writer, and you want to reach as many people as possible, maybe you want to see your work get adapted, you know, then, or just in general, have people take your work seriously.
Yes.
I offer some suggestions in the book where, you know, you can make that happen.
I'll give you an example. I think you've had an adaptation, haven't you? Did I pronounce that right? Adaptation.
Adaptation, right. So my vampire novel, Fiona's Guardians, was adapted by an all-professional theater company, Artists Ensemble Theater, and they had a podcast. You remember during the pandemic, the theater companies shut down. You know, they couldn't have any live performances. Well, the more savvy theater companies put out these theater of the mind podcasts. And Artists Ensemble Theater has one called Mysterious Journey, which is available on Spotify, Podbean, anywhere where you get your podcasts. And they did a fantastic job. The playwright there at AET, she converted, I want to say, half a dozen chapters of my book, and even changed the ending for the purpose of the podcast. But it made sense, so I approved it. And it is a fantastic production. It involves 7 union actors. It involved, they added interstitial music and sound effects and stuff like that. So look for it on Spotify. Mysterious Journey, Fiona's Guardians. It's about a half-hour long, and it is a fantastic production.
2 things. Number one, if you could get me that link, I would be glad to put it down.
Oh, absolutely.
Come on. And like and subscribe, just out of nowhere. I'm just going to start shouting that out. Like and subscribe this channel. No other reason. Just like and subscribe it. Don't ask questions. Just do it. I have never had an adaptation of anything I wrote. I would imagine that made you feel really good. There has to be some satisfaction.
Well, there was, but then I realized something. Most people, including myself, who are thinking about getting their work adapted, that where do you go first in your mind? You go, oh, a film, or maybe a series on Netflix or Hulu, right?
Right.
And those are absolutely the hardest things to get.
That's right.
Exactly.
You know, but look for opportunities. There may be a community theater nearby in your neighborhood. There may be a professional theater company or whatever, and maybe they have a podcast. Approach them. You know, if your book maybe is suited for, I don't know, live action role play. Go for it. Make that happen. You know, talk to the people who make the decisions there and make it happen.
And work
Small
with them,
steps
because a lot.
first.
Go ahead, Deneen. I'm sorry.
I said small steps first, and then and once you get recognized, then it goes further and further.
Yeah, like I know one time, I've never had an adaptation, but I did have 2 drunk guys read my poem. I was a little dissatisfied with the whole urinating thing at the
That's
end.
awesome.
Wasn't the ending I saw coming, but you know, there you go. It's out of your control. But I think you have to. It's work. Work.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I was a little disappointed in my situation.
You know what? Somebody out there is going to enjoy that.
That's it. Somebody's going to like it.
You should lean into that.
I'll take what I can get.
Yeah.
Small steps, Joe. Small steps.
That's right.
I'm not proud. That's one thing you'll know about me. I'm not proud. Okay. So I think we got some things here, but I want to go and end on a kind of serious note, Dan, because I think the stuff that we do is serious. And it is encouragement that maybe you don't get rich and famous from your first writing.
Yeah.
And what that means. And on a serious note, we have to address that because there is this fantasy, and I deal with it. Look, I dealt with music. Let me set this up for you.
Okay.
I dealt with music for a while, with musicians for a while.
Understood. I can see. Yeah. Okay.
For a while. And everybody just thought that there was going to be this magical moment where something happened and we were all going to be famous. I don't have any problem with that fantasy, except it eliminated the work.
Right.
Like you have talked about in your book. It's like you believed that there was this genie that was going to come and bless us.
Yeah. And
it
rarely does that happen.
Yeah. It eliminated the stuff that looked like work to me. Okay.
Yeah.
Just for people that already know they have to work, just some kind words to let them know that even if it is a slow process, it's a worthwhile process.
It's slow at times, but your book deserves it. Again, it comes down to if you've written something that you are especially proud of,
yes,
or whatever you've created that you absolutely feel like really captures what you want to say to the world, then you really owe it to that piece of work to get it out there as far as possible, to get as many people to enjoy and appreciate it as possible. And so the work that you will do to get there is really just, I think it's just serving what you've created.
Yeah. You know, there's an old saying, and I'm going to mispronounce it because I'm just going to stare. I'm going to just kind of just give you the brief overview. It goes, you know, the problem with opportunity is a lot of time it shows up in a pair of work boots and some gloves.
Yeah,
exactly.
And if that's what it takes, then
that's what it takes.
Yeah, then do it, you know?
Yeah. You know, I think that this is something that I think we'd all agree with. Be the best you can be.
Yep.
Don't try to be the best Joe or the best Deneen or the best Dan. Be the best you that you can be.
Right.
And be true to yourself, you know, as much as possible.
Yeah. No, you got a nice bell on that one. So somebody was ringing, ding, ding, ding.
I like that.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm glad you didn't have that Riders on the Storm ringtone. That all gets real creepy if you play that through. Especially if you're
one of
to
the
pick
things,
up hijackers. Carjackers.
One of the things, though, is really if you want to get anywhere, you have to put that effort into it. You can't just put it out there and expect somebody to take over for it.
No, absolutely. You know, and so I think this is an opportunity for you to take charge of your creation and be the first to explain it, so other people aren't explaining it for you and maybe getting it wrong, mischaracterizing it. So there's a little bit of control. You have a little bit of control over it if you put the work out, put the effort in.
Right. One thing I want to really stress about something you said, and I think this is a good focus for everybody. Be legit.
Right.
Okay. Be legit. Let me explain to you what be legit means. And Dan's legit. That's why he's on here. Don't tell people you're a best-selling author when you're not.
Right.
Okay. I know somebody sent you a badge to put it on your website, but you're not. Number 2. If your review was written by your mom, we all know it. Yeah. Be legit, because there's something about, even if you don't like me, or you don't like Deneen, or you don't like Dan, and you don't like us, but you go, I actually think they're legit.
Yeah.
There's a respect there.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and I will respect anybody who, you know, puts in the effort. First of all, writes a great book. Even if I don't particularly like that genre or even agree with whatever they're saying, if it's a good book, if it's a solid piece of literature, I can get behind that and support them.
Yeah, I'll give you a good example. I've got 3 people, I'm sorry, who have worked with me that I think are hard workers. And you're being one of them. Look, sometimes I just respect y'all for the work, the hard work.
Yeah, I appreciate
I'll just
that.
look at that and go, I probably need to work harder. I'm serious. I'm serious. I've looked at it and gone, I probably need to work harder. I need to work.
We've been sent from on high, Joseph, to say
I
I
believe that. And I think those things are important, and you should get inspired and be legit. You can be legit without being a jerk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Some people think being legit means being rude, and it's not. There's usually nothing to gain from being rude.
Yes.
But being legit, there's a lot to gain from that.
I think this is one time in your life you can toot your own horn and, put yourself out there and say, hey, I got something I want to show people, and do it.
Yeah, I'm proud of this. I think you'll be entertained or informed by it. Give it a shot. I stand behind this work.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And I will say this, be aware who you're writing for. Go back to what Deneen said. Be aware who you're writing for. If you are going to be a genre writer, and for most of us we are, whether we want to admit it or not.
Right.
If you were to believe from just listening to me, today, and you don't know me, you may not like, I really like to write poetry. And if this was 1850, I'd be a star. But it's not. So I write other stuff too. Okay.
Right.
Because nobody wants to see an old man underneath the tree talking poetry.
Well, Joseph, you brought up something really interesting. If you were in 1850 and, people would read your poetry, right?
Right.
If this were in the 19th century, because people, that was their primary, I guess, form of entertainment.
Yeah.
Or one of them was
Right.
reading books.
Yeah.
Now we have this fractured media landscape where, we have so many devices competing for our attention. There's YouTube, there's TikTok, there's Facebook, Instagram, and this guy's got a book out he wants me to read. Okay, maybe I'll devote some, So in DIY book promo, which I think is not only just a book title, but a philosophy.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
That's what you're competing against. So it's really about piggybacking on those other social media distractions and creating awareness about your work.
Yeah, and I think that's what I meant about we need to form this kind of union. Because we all need each other. You need writers, you need visual artists, you need people who can get on YouTube and influencers and doing it. Fill what you are, fill in how you want to look at that, and then we do that. So those are the things that I think as time progresses, I hope we can bring together on SGC, and I hope you can be a big part of that, Dan.
Well, I hope to continue writing for Southern Gothic Creations. And I should mention, there's one chapter in DIY Book Promo that was first published in SCG, Southern Gothic Creations.
SGC, Southern Gothic.
Yeah. And it's the one in the book that's now titled, I think it changed the title to Step Up to the Mic, How to Perform Well during an Interview. That y'all published, I think maybe 6 months or even a year ago.
Yeah, we've always enjoyed your work. And look, for some people that are introverts, this can be difficult because, as you can tell from this one, we're not. We're extroverts. So but if you're an introvert, you have to work on that.
Well, there are things you can do, and I talk about this in the book, especially in that chapter, where you can create a moment with the person interviewing with you, and kind of, or if you're the interviewer, put your interviewee at ease. So it's a two-way street. I talk about both ends of that, both sides of the microphone, and how to make the other comfortable. And that hopefully the interview will go smoothly, and you'll be able to share a really fine product, whether it's an audio recording or a visual. And so, introverts, I understand how you feel. It doesn't take much effort to have a really good interview. Right.
Just say stuff like and subscribe this channel. Out of nowhere. If you're interviewing with somebody, remember the name of the program, and just out of nowhere go hit like and subscribe. Not even with a question.
That's actually the great name for a program, actually.
Yeah.
That's right. Hit
Like and subscribe. Yeah.
I might steal that idea from you there.
You can have it, of course. Yes.
Well, I remember when Joe first told me, he said, I think I want to get you on camera. And I'm like, you what? And I had that like, no. And he's like, no, you can do it. And I'm like, okay, fine.
Oh, so maybe you are a little introverted, I take it.
Yeah, I had to convince her to come on because I wanted somebody other than myself just talking. And I'm like, and Deneen does a lot of our research on all of our projects. So it was a natural fit.
Right. Yeah. I don't mind it now. I'm okay with it.
But there was some things where we started doing meetings and we were practicing without knowing we were practicing.
Yeah, true.
So just learn to get comfortable.
So Deneen can get comfortable in front of a camera, so can you.
Exactly.
That's right.
There you go.
And she was apprehensive, gang. This wasn't like she was begging me to get, that was my idea, not her. So it wasn't like she was begging me to get on camera, but it's turned out to be good. So I've been real happy. And I'm not saying this to be funny. I just knew she could do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew she could do it.
That little nudge.
And there is a thing too, and I think you'll do it if anybody wants to do podcasting. There's got to be another voice than yours.
It helps, to have somebody you can bounce ideas off on the fly. I think that's really important.
Right.
Because if you take out Deneen and you talking and just leave my talking in this one, I will sound like a crazy person. But because there is some interaction, I don't think that is challenged.
You're not just talking to yourself.
Let me look at my phone, and I'm not editing that out. I love when I watch other podcasters all the time, and I love it when they make these little adjustments and there's skips in it, because I'm like, just leave it in. What were you saying? Unless you were losing profanity, what you can do a little ooh and ah.
It looks like maybe you're hiding something when you do an obvious edit like that.
Just like my phone ringing.
Yeah, that's not getting edited out either.
That happens to everybody.
Yeah,
the
dog's barking, the phone ringing.
I'm just not going to do
it.
Because I will be honest with you, there is time for hard edit. Like if we made a gigantic mistake.
Of course.
Where something happened. Your dog ate you or something. We'd edit it out. You'd be like in the beginning, and then there would be this big break where I'd like have, and then we'd come back and there would only be two of us, and I would not explain that you'd been ate.
Like I bet your viewers would go up though, right?
Yeah, it would go viral.
Way up.
Yeah.
So it's funny, and I just think that if you listen to this and you hope that you can do it, we can get it done. And Dan, we're going to have you back on, so I appreciate that.
I am honored. I really enjoyed this conversation today, Joseph and Deneen. So yes, please bring me back on. I would love to talk more.
We're going to do it.
Right. And Dan, one thing I know you were promoting, the independent bookstore.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Saturday, April 27th.
Right. So we're just as we're recording, just a couple of weeks from there. Indie bookstores, I talk about that a lot in my book, DIY book promo. They're more likely, if you're an author, they're more likely to stock books by local authors.
Yes.
They're more likely to, if they like you, if you buy a book from them, and direct your friends to buy books from them, they're more likely to invite you to a signing event. So perhaps that's where you'll have your book launch. And indie bookstores, I mean, they're just like other mom and pop shops in your town. Locally owned businesses are so important. I mean, more of your dollars that you spend there are going to stay in the community, especially compared to when you shop at a chain store.
Yeah, I'm big for the local shopping. We need to take care of our local people.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a time, people, you didn't even have to say that. You just kind of did it. But we got to take care of our local people. We just got to do it.
Exactly.
But look, I thank everybody for being here. It's a wonderful show. it was kind of strange because I felt like I had done this before. And
We'll need to describe that or leave a description in the description. What was what?
Yep,
what
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to put that in.
A weird deja vu occurred. So
Yes.
there's all I got to say about that. So look, I appreciate y'all. We're going to be back. We're going to do more of these programs. And Dan, man, I appreciate everything. Deneen, appreciate everything. We'll see everybody soon. Y'all have a good
Take care.
Bye-bye.